Jim. Thank you for that introduction. So as Jim already said, my name is Lana, and I've been teaching yoga for about 12 years. And Jim, if you want to make me co-host, then I can share.
Sorry about that.
As well. That's all right. So I want to, before we dive into movement, I just want to speak to what we're going to be focusing on today. And I also want to invite you to make this practice your own, meaning if I offer something and it doesn't quite fit your body, then that is okay. And I don't want you to force or jam yourself into things that feel like uncomfortable or unpleasant, or you don't want any sharp pain or anything like that today. And the goal of this practice is to gently soothe your muscles and lengthen the muscles that get tight from all of that repetitive movement that you do on a regular basis. And another thing, and actually my boyfriend is a farmer and owns a farm, so I have firsthand experience with the common injuries that happen in the farming world. So a lot of that is hand injuries, as well as lower back injuries, shoulder injuries. And so the yoga practice that we're going to do today is designed to help you lengthen the muscles that get tight and use your core to help protect your back, so that we can prevent injury from happening in the future. And this is not necessarily a class that is designed to help you recover from injury per se, but it is designed to help prevent injury from happening in the first place. So we will start with just a couple minutes of just grounding, because it's more likely that you'll be able to relax into the poses if your mind is also at ease and if you feel comfortable in your headspace and your heart space. So what I'll have you do is find a comfortable seated position, and it could be sitting in a chair, it could be sitting on the floor. And also, if you didn't already, lay out a yoga mat for yourself, or if you don't have a yoga mat, you can use something like a towel on the ground, or just something that gives you comfort in your body, comfort to be on the floor. And let's go ahead, and once you found a comfortable seat, go ahead and close your eyes. And once you've closed your eyes, take a really nice deep breath. And notice how your headspace feels. Does your mind feel busy? Does your mind feel clear? Notice how your heart space feels. Does your heart space feel heavy or light? And then let's take a breath all together. So exhale, empty out your lungs. And take a really nice, easy inhale. And exhale out of your mouth. And we'll take another breath together just like that. So another easy inhale. And another exhale. And we'll start with just the top of the spine. So go ahead and roll your head around in easy circles. And this circular motion is less about really stretching your neck, and it's more about just gaining awareness of what's going on in all of the muscles in your head and your neck. And switch directions. We're starting with circular motion because circular movement is really, really good for your joints, and it's also a really, really good diagnostic tool. It's a great way to get really quick information about what's going on in your body. Let your head come back to neutral and take your right hand to the ground to your right. And if you're not on the floor, you can just put your right hand on the chair where you are and take your left arm out, up, and over so that you can bring your left arm into big circles. And again, we're doing circular motion to get circulation to the joint and also to gain awareness of what's going on in your joint right now. Notice if there's like a snack, crackle, pop happening in your shoulder, or maybe there's one spot where you pass through this circle and you're like, ooh, that's a tight spot. Feel free to iron over it a few times. Just a couple more circles in this direction. And again, it doesn't matter how you're sitting. What matters more is just the circular motion of your top shoulder. And then we'll switch directions. A few more circles in that direction. And then we'll do the other side. So you can take your left hand to the ground, to your left, lean over to the left a little bit and make big circles with your top shoulder. Notice if this shoulder feels any different than the other shoulder. Again, if you find a spot where you pass through this motion and you're like, ooh, that's a good stretch, feel free to hang out there or pass over it a few times. I kind of like to think of it as ironing out that point in the joint, as if you're like ironing out a piece of clothing, trying to get a wrinkle out of it. You can think of it like that. And switch directions and notice if your breath is still smooth. Good. And then coming back to center, take your fingers, interlace them in front of you, flip your palms forward. So again, interlace and then flip your palms forward. And then take your arms, you can move backwards so you can see a little better. Take your arms over your head and then start to make circles with your arms and upper body. And if your elbows don't straighten all the way, that's okay. You can just roll around in circles here. But if you can get your elbows to straighten, it deepens the sensation of the stretch in your shoulders. And this is a great thing to do if you ever find that you're out in the field and your body's just feeling a little jammed up, a little locked up. Go ahead and do this anytime throughout your day that you need a little bit more loosening up in your shoulders and your upper back, and then switch directions and make sure you can still breathe easy. And then relax your arms into your lap and go ahead and just close your eyes for a second and notice how your shoulders feel. Notice how your upper back feels. Notice how your head space feels, how your heart space feels. Is your mind busy or clear? Does your heart feel heavy or light? And we'll do these check-ins pretty frequently throughout our practice today, because doing a baseline check-in of what's going on in your heart, mind, and body makes it easier to listen to your body when it whispers so that it doesn't have to scream. So even more importantly than just moving your body is being aware of your body, being aware of the subtle sensations that are warning you of a potential injury, so that you can prevent an injury before it happens. And take a moment to relax your shoulders, let your elbows get a little heavier. Soften your jaw. And let's take a breath together again. So exhale, empty out your lungs. And take a really nice, easy inhale. And exhale out of your mouth. And then we're going to do that same kind of circular movement in our hips. So make your way to your hands and knees for a tabletop position. And once you're in a tabletop position, take your left knee and make big circles with that knee. So again, you're just ironing out the hip joint. Noticing any kinks in the hip joint. If you kind of pass through a spot and you're like, oh, that feels a little bit locked up, you can iron over it a few times. And switch directions. You might even feel your glutes engaging a little bit here. And then we'll do the other leg. So take your right knee out to the right and make big circles with your right knee so that you're ironing out your right hip joint. And notice if your breath is still smooth. Switch directions if you didn't already. Good. And then bringing your knees back down to the ground. Now we'll do some cat cows. These are really good for the health of your spine. Being able to arch and hollow and have mobility through the spine is super healthy. So think about dropping your belly button down, stick your tailbone out, think collarbones wide, and then lift your chin and take a nice full breath in. And then exhale, drop your head, relax the back of your neck, and pull your low belly in, lengthening the back side of your body. And then inhale, drop your belly, lift your tailbone, collarbones wide, lift your chin. And then exhale, pull your low belly in, let your head drop, lengthen the back of your neck. And do this same motion a couple more times on your own. And one more time back and forth. Good. And then find a neutral spine. And now it's really common for farmers who work with their hands a lot to have wrist injuries. So we'll take a moment to stretch the wrists by taking your fingers back to face your knees. And if you're already here and you're like, ow, this hurts, then take your fingers to face the outer edges of your yoga mat instead and just rock from side to side until you feel a little sensation of a stretch. But if you feel like you want more of a stretch, then take your fingers back to face your knees and lean back until you feel a sensation of a stretch in your forearms. And we're going to breathe here for about 5 breaths or so. So go ahead and just let your exhales soften your jaw and your tongue. And let your inhales be really easy and smooth. And the longer we stay here, you might notice the sensation changes a little bit. And if you find that the sensation gets a little bit easier or more subtle, then you might even lean back a little farther, deepening the stretch in your forearms and wrists. Again, your exhales soften your jaw. Let your inhales be easy. Good. And then go ahead and take your hands back to face forward again, the same thing we just did. And now we're going to find that circular motion again by rolling around in circles over your wrists. And this might give you information about how that wrist stretch felt. If you feel any sharp pain, then make your circles a little bit less wide. You can go a little bit shallower so that you're not going outside of the realm of comfort for your body. And it's honestly really normal for these to feel a little bit intense, especially if you don't stretch your wrists in this way very often. Switch directions if you didn't already. Circling over your hands the other way. Good. And then come up to standing on your knees and just roll around in circles with your hands and fists. Just again, a little information for how your wrists are doing today. And now we're going to do a wrist stretch that for some can be very, very intense. And I'll just show you how how to do it. So you'll take your hands and fists and then touch your knuckles together. And when you put the back of your hand on the ground, try not to let your fingers open and try not to let your knuckles separate. So keeping the fists, keeping the knuckles together, take the back of your hand to the ground. You can start with your elbows bent at first so that you can keep the knuckles together and the hands closed into fists, and then see if maybe you can start to straighten your elbows someday. And it's, again, really, really normal for this to be really intense for the outside of the top of the forearm. If you need to keep your elbows bent, that is totally fine. And just soften your jaw. As you exhale, let your tongue relax away from the roof of your mouth. And as you inhale, let it be really easy to breathe in. I'm going to spend a few more breaths right here. And notice if you have a tendency to want to let your fingers open from that fist, or if your knuckles are sliding away from each other on your mat, see if you can close your fists, glue your knuckles together, stay for a couple more breaths. Good. And then release that. Take your hands flat to the ground and do a few more of these circles over your wrists. This is, again, really great diagnostic movement. Switch directions. Good. And then come back up to standing on your knees. So now we're going to spend a moment opening up the front of your chest. So this is something that when you're using a lot of heavy equipment, you're using a lot of tools, you're picking things up, this muscle through the front of your chest gets really tight, and then ends up pulling your shoulder joint forward and in, which can cause shoulder injury and impingement of the shoulder joint here. So we want to lengthen the front of the chest. And there's a bunch of different ways to do this. I'm going to show you two options, and you can choose which one feels the most available to you today. One option is taking your hand on a wall. If you don't have a wall, don't worry about it. I'm going to show you variation on the floor in a second. Taking your hand on a wall and turning away from that hand. And notice how my hand is facing, fingers facing away from me. Fingers on the wall, turning away from that hand so that you can feel a stretch through the front of your shoulder. You might also feel it through your wrists and fingers. And if you don't have a wall available right now, what you can do is instead lie on your belly and take that. We'll start on the left side. So you'll take your left hand on the ground to your left, and then think about rolling your body onto your left side so that you can feel a stretch through the front of your left shoulder. And you can also push your right hand down into the ground to deepen the stretch to make it a little bit more like you're rolling onto that outer left body, that left side of your body. And again, the goal is to feel a stretch through the front of your left shoulder. And if you want the stretch to feel a little bit deeper, you can press your left hand into the ground. And then we'll do the other side. If you're on the wall, switch arms. If you're on your belly, take your right arm out to the right. And then think about rolling onto your right side body so that you can feel a stretch through your right front of your shoulder. And sometimes you might need to play around with how high your arm is in relation to your body. Generally, about a 90-degree angle from your body is ideal for this stretch, but depending on where you're tight, you might need it to be a little bit lower or a little bit higher. Take a few more deep breaths. Again, if you want more, you can push your left hand into the ground to roll onto your right side a little bit farther. You can also push your right hand down to deepen the sensation in the front of your right shoulder. Good. And then lay back on your belly again. And if you were at the wall, come down to lying on your belly so that we can all meet up here. And we're going to do what I call a Sphinx, arch, and hollow. And this is a core strengthener that is really, really good for your back and will help prevent you from lower back injuries, because the stronger your core is, the more integrity you have in your spine, and the more protected your spine is from being forced into painful positions. So start with your elbows stacked directly underneath your shoulders. So it's kind of like, like as if you're hanging out on the beach on your belly with your elbows underneath your shoulders. Make sure that your elbows are not too far forward or too far back from your shoulders, directly underneath the shoulders. And then think collarbones wide, open the front of your chest. And it's okay to feel a little bit of compression in your lower back, but you don't want to feel any sharp pain. So if you feel any sharp pain, then take your elbows a little wider to make this less of a compression for your back. But if you feel okay here, then we'll stay here and we'll do a core strengthener from this position. So you'll take an inhale, and then on your exhale, start to squeeze your butt, pull your low belly in, push into your elbows, and hover your hips off of the floor. So you're trying to think rounding your spine, making the back side of your body as long as you can. And then inhale, drop your hips and open your chest, arch your back. And we'll do that a few more times. So each exhale, pull your lower belly in, lengthen your low back, and engage your core. And each inhale, open the front of your chest. And if you want this to be even a little bit more intense, what you can do is not just lift your hips, but also press into the tops of your feet to lift your knees. It's a really, really good core strengthener. And then inhale, arch, collarbones wide. And then exhale, lift your hips up, engage your core, tuck your tailbone. Good. And then take your hands underneath your shoulders. We'll rest in a child pose for a moment. This is a really nice knee stretch, ankle stretch. If this is too intense for you in this moment, you can put something like a rolled up blanket underneath your ankles or between your hips and your heels. Or what you can do is hips on top of your knees, elbows on the ground, and let your head dangle. That's another variation you can do. Otherwise, if you can get your hips to your heels, go ahead and let your forehead rest either on your yoga mat or on a block. And take 5 deep breaths here. And soften your jaw again. Let's take this last breath together. So exhale, empty out your lungs. And take a nice, easy inhale. And exhale out of your mouth. And then really nice and slow, make your way to a comfortable seated position. So you can roll yourself up to sitting on your heels. And if you're comfortable sitting on your heels, you can stay there. If not, you're welcome to sit cross-legged or pull up a chair and sit in a chair. It's totally fine. We're going to do our baseline check-in again. So sitting comfortably in your lap, notice, how's your head space? Sometimes when our mind is super busy, we tend to forget to check in with our body. And then that's when injuries can creep up on us. Notice how your heart space feels. Notice any new sensations in your body. Notice any familiar sensations in your body. And soften your jaw. Let's take another breath together. Exhale, empty out your lungs. And take a nice, easy inhale. And exhale out of your mouth. And slowly open your eyes. So we're going to spend a little bit more time on shoulder opening, but this time, instead of opening the front of the chest, we're going to play around with opening the back of the shoulder blade. And this is the spot where everybody always wants a massage, right? You have that spot right behind your shoulder blade where you're like, ooh, can somebody please just dig their fingers into my shoulder blades? So we're going to work on stretching that exact spot. So take your right elbow on top of your left elbow. And sometimes it's hard to get it there. And if you can't get your elbow to stack on top of your elbow, then take the bottom elbow, take that hand onto your elbow and pull it in towards the midline. And it does the same thing. But if you can stack that right elbow on top of your left, then see if you can wrap your forearms together and maybe you touch your palms in front of your face someday. Again, if not, that's okay. And then think elbows up, shoulders down, and hands forward. So again, if you're doing this with holding onto your elbow instead, you can pull it in, lift it up, and then bring your hand forward, and you may feel a stretch in that right shoulder blade. And the more you pull it into your chest, the deeper you'll feel that. And feel free to play around with, once you're here, if you want to play around with deepening the stretch, you may also move your head around in circles and see which variation creates more of a stretch in that right shoulder blade. And once you found a really good spot and you want to hang out there for a few breaths, go ahead and just breathe easy into the stretch. And 2 more deep breaths. If you want more sensation, think shoulders down again, elbows up again, hands forward again. Good. And when you feel complete with that, you can unravel your arms. And if you need to take that right arm in big circles for a moment, just like we did at the beginning, you can take your left hand down, right arm up, and just iron out your shoulder joint. And there's not really a right or wrong way to do this circular motion. It's more about what feels right for your body. And switch directions. Good. And then we'll switch sides. So this time, take your left elbow on top of your right. And again, if your left elbow doesn't make it there, then hold on to that top elbow with your bottom hand so that you can pull it in toward your chest. If you can stack your elbows, then see if you can take your forearms to wrap together and grab for your hands. Again, no pressure if that doesn't happen today. It might happen someday. And then think elbows up, shoulders down, and hands forward. And you should feel a stretch in that left shoulder blade this time. And this might be enough, or maybe you roll your head around until you find a deeper variation of that stretch. Once you've found a deeper variation, feel free to stay there and just breathe easy. And take a couple more deep breaths. And when you feel complete with that, you can take your right hand to the ground and take that left arm in big circles again, ironing out your shoulder joint. And switch directions. Good. And then we'll go ahead and do another shoulder stretch. So take your hands back behind you, and if you're sitting in a chair, I recommend coming down to the ground now so that you can put your feet out in front of you comfortably and your hands back behind you with your fingers facing your hips. And now the goal is to feel a stretch through the front of the shoulder and the deltoid again. So this time what we're going to do is press into your hands and feet so that you can pick your hips up and slide them toward your feet, so that when you bend your elbows and squeeze your elbows in towards one another, you should feel a really nice stretch through the front of the shoulder. And if you want a deeper sensation of a stretch, you can pick your hips up and bring them even closer to your feet and bend your elbows even more deeply and squeeze your elbows even a little closer together, but it gets really deep really fast. So just don't go too deep. Don't go past the comfort level of your body. You don't want to feel any sharp pain. You want it to feel like a hurt so good kind of sensation. And soften your jaw again. And let's take another breath together. Exhale, empty out your lungs. And take a nice, easy inhale. And exhale out of your mouth. And then to come out of this, sometimes it's a little tricky to get out. You want to think about pressing into your hands and feet to bring your hips back to your hands again so that you can take weight out of your hands. And we'll do the same shoulder stretch that we did earlier. Take your fingers in front of you, interlace them, flip your palms forward, take your arms over your head and make circles from there. And this is a nice recovery from that shoulder opener that we just did. And switch direction. Good. And then relax your arms. And another baseline check-in moment. Rest your hands comfortably in your lap. Relax your shoulders away from your ears. Close your eyes and just take note of any new sensations you feel in your shoulders. Any familiar sensations you feel in your shoulders. Good. And then open your eyes again if they were closed. And now we're going to do one more shoulder stretch. And I know that we've been doing a lot on the shoulders. Your shoulders might feel a little bit tender over the next couple of days, but just be nice to your shoulders in the next couple of days because we're doing some pretty deep stretching. So now this time you're going to take your hands back behind you. You can put your feet back to the ground again. Same concept of what we did before, except this time taking your fingers to face away from you with your thumbs facing out. So instead of thumbs facing in, fingers towards you, thumbs facing out, fingers away from you. And similar concept, we're going to think about bringing the hips away from your hands to deepen the stretch. And this might already be enough for you. Or you might take your hips even farther towards your feet. You might have to move your feet a little bit farther forward to make room. And then play around with, once you're here, think about a little bit of movement in your spine, a little bit of arch, a little bit of hollow, and see where you feel like the most ideal stretch in your shoulders. And again, you want it to feel like a hurt so good kind of stretch and not like a sharp, sharp pain. You don't want to feel like you're inducing injury. You want to feel like you are lengthening the muscles in your shoulders. And once you've found that ideal stretch, if this is too deep, then bring your hips back toward your feet again until you feel a really nice sensation of a stretch. And take 5 deep breaths right here. Soften your jaw again. And it's really normal when we open up the major joints of the body, like the shoulders and the hips. It's really normal for the jaw to get a little bit tight in kind of response to that. And see if you can soften your jaw. And take 1 more deep breath. And when you're ready to come out of it, press into your hands and feet to bring your hips back towards your hands again, and we'll take that same circular motion with the hands. This time, interlace your fingers with the non-dominant finger on top. So when you interlace your fingers, there's a way that you want to interlace them, and then there's a way that you don't want to with the opposite pointer finger on top. Let's try that opposite stretch. Interlace your fingers, flip your palms forward, and then take your arms over your head and make circles with your torso and your arms. And we've done this a few times already. You might notice that maybe you have more mobility in this region than you did at the beginning of our practice today. And then another baseline check-in. Relax your arms down by your sides. Relax your shoulders away from your ears and close your eyes. Take a nice deep breath. Let's take a breath together again. Exhale, empty out your lungs. And take a nice easy inhale. And exhale out of your mouth. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes again. And now we're going to transition from the shoulders to the hamstrings and the hips, focusing on the hamstrings first. So it's really common when we're using the legs really often, when we're doing a lot of heavy lifting with the legs, the hamstrings get really locked up. And it's really normal for when the hamstrings get really tight, it kind of pulls on your lower back and creates tension in your lower back. So what we're going to try to do in this stretch is isolate the stretch in the hamstring and make sure that it is not pulling on your lower back, even in the slightest. You want to feel nothing in your lower back. So to do that, let's take right leg forward and left knee pulled in. So your left knee is bent, left foot towards inner thigh, and right leg straight. And bend your right knee until you can get your spine all the way flat. And then once your spine is all the way flat, then start to straighten your leg again. And if you can't straighten your leg without rounding the spine, then keep your knee bent. And from here, what we're going to do is lean forward just enough to feel a sensation of a stretch in your hamstring. And again, no pain in your back. And then this is where we will stay for about a minute, maybe even a little bit longer than a minute. And as your body starts to acclimate to this pose, see if you can keep your spine straight and start to get that right knee to straighten a little bit. And then eventually you'll be able to fold all the way forward with your back straight. But for now, we're focusing on just feeling a sensation of a stretch through the back of the right leg while keeping your spine completely flat. And this can help prevent lower back injury in the future. And soften your jaw. Let your tongue soften in your mouth. And you might notice that as your body starts to acclimate, maybe you can inch your hands forward a little bit. Again, we're not rounding the spine here. We're trying to keep the spine straight so that your lower back has no pressure on it and you just feel stretched through the back of the right leg. And breathe easy. And if you want more of a stretch through your calf, you can flex your right foot towards your face, deepening the length in the back of the right calf. And again, maybe the sensation has changed a little bit and you can walk your hands a little bit farther forward. No pressure to do that. This is only if the sensation allows for you to go deeper. And let's take another breath together. So exhale, empty out your lungs. And take a nice, easy inhale. And exhale out of your mouth. And then really nice and slow, start to walk your hands back into center. And we'll do a little recovery moment. Take your arms back behind you, feet on the ground, kind of like we did in the last pose. But this time, windshield wiper your knees from side to side. And just gain information on what's happening in your lower back, what's happening in your right hamstring. What sensations do you feel in your hips? And again, this moment is less about what you're feeling and more about the quality of your awareness on what you're feeling. How closely can you pay attention to all the little sensations in your body? Good. And then we'll come back up to sitting. We'll do the other leg. So this time you'll have your left leg straight and your right knee bent so that the sole of your right foot is on your left inner thigh. And then again, get your spine as straight as you can. And if that means bending your left knee a lot, then that's fine. And you're only straightening the leg as far as you can to feel stretch in the back of the left hamstring and a straightening in your spine. You don't want to feel any tension in your back here. So this might be where you stay. This might be, as long as you're feeling a sensation in the left hamstring, I'm happy. If you want more sensation, start to yearn that left knee towards straight. You can also lean forward again, as long as you don't feel a rounding through your lower back. And we'll stay here for a little bit longer than a minute. And feel free to close your eyes, especially if that helps you gain awareness of the inside of your body, so that you get less distracted by all the things around you and you get more in tune with the subtle sensations that are happening underneath the skin. And if the sensation starts to go away a little bit, you might try either straightening the left leg a little bit more or folding a little bit farther forward, kind of walking your hands a little farther. And see if you can use your best judgment as to when you are ready to go deeper. And what ready to go deeper means is that the sensation of a stretch has lessened in your hamstring and you want a little bit more sensation. That's when you're ready to go a little farther. And if you didn't already, close your eyes, soften your jaw again, soften your shoulders. If you want more of a sensation in the back of your left calf, you can flex your toes towards your face a little bit more. And let's take yet another breath together. So exhale, empty out your lungs. And take a nice, easy inhale. And exhale out of your mouth. Good. And then nice and slow, start to walk your hands back behind you, walk your feet to the ground, and rock your knees from side to side, little windshield wiper. Again, how closely can you pay attention to the subtle sensations of your body? And if you gather anything from this class, it's that the closer you pay attention to your body, the more likely you'll be able to catch an injury before it happens and prevent it. So another way I like to say, I said this earlier, is listen to your body when it whispers so it doesn't have to scream. So listen to your body when you feel those warnings of an injury before you actually get injured. And then coming back to center. So now it's really common for the front of the chest to get really closed, and over time you'll notice that the spine starts to get more and more rounded, especially for the older generation. And so what I'm going to actually suggest is grab a pillow or two, or even better, like a thick cushion. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a little pile of either couch cushions, or you can use a couple folded up blankets, anything that gives you the ability to open the front of your chest when you're lying on your back. So these pillows I'm gonna put under my upper back, and I can just show it to you first so that you don't have to look while you're lying down. I'm gonna take my pillows, put it behind my back, and I can keep my feet grounded and let my knees knock together, especially if your lower back needs assistance with staying long. And then I'm gonna let my head drop back and let my arms relax out wide to the sides. And what this is doing is it's letting gravity do the work of opening up the front of your chest and reversing the action of the spine that we're so used to doing every day, of rounding the spine forward. So if you didn't already, go ahead and take something like a stack of pillows or a stack of folded up blankets and put it behind your back so that you can arch your back over those pillows. And if your neck feels uncomfortable here, you can go ahead and grab another stack of pillows and put it behind your head to hold your head up and prevent discomfort in your neck. And we'll stay here for a couple of minutes. And it takes a little bit of time for the spine to kind of rearrange and get comfortable in this position. And play around with different arm positions. Maybe it feels really good to bring your arms overhead, grasping for either hands or opposite elbows above your head. Maybe it feels really good to bring your arms out wide into kind of like cactus arms. If that's too intense, you can also bring your arms down by your sides. And if you ever find that you want more sensation here, you can take more support behind your upper back, making this back bend a little bit deeper. Make sure your hips stay on the ground. And feel free to do any leg position that feels good for your body. Notice what experience you're having right this moment. Notice what's going on in your headspace. Is your mind busy or clear? Notice what's going on in your heart space. Is your heart heavy or light? And notice any new sensations in your body, any familiar sensations in your body. And let's take another breath all together here. So exhale, empty out your lungs. And take a nice, easy inhale. And exhale out of your mouth. And then when you're ready, we'll make our way to lying on your back without the props. So you can roll onto one side and then take those pillows out from underneath you, or you can sit up, take them out from underneath you. And we'll start to make our way into your final Shavasana, final relaxation pose. But before you do that, if there's anything that your body needs, for example, my body really likes to do windshield wipers again, feel free to roll your knees from side to side and loosen up your hips and your lower back. Or if there's anything else that your body is longing for, feel free to take a moment to do that. And then once you feel complete, you're welcome to lie on your back with your arms and legs splayed out as comfortably to the sides as you can get them. And if you want a pillow for your head, feel free to use it. If you feel like your lower back is arched and uncomfortable, you can knock your knees together again, bringing the soles of your feet to the floor, knees together so that your lower back is long. And we'll be here for a few more minutes. So go ahead and just let your body comfortably soften into the floor. Let your toes flap out wide if your legs are long. And if the front of your chest feels closed, you can scoot your shoulder blades a little closer together behind your back and flip your palms to face up, so the front of your chest is a little more open. And slowly start to deepen your breath again. And wiggle your fingers and your toes, gently reawakening your body. And when you feel ready, you can take your arms up over your head, walk your feet in if they're not already in by your hips, and take a nice deep breath. Then nice and slow, roll onto one side and make your way up to a comfortable seat. We'll take another baseline check-in here, sitting comfortably, however feels good to you. Notice any new sensations in your body. Maybe feel a lingering sensation from all of the stretches and movement that we did today. Notice how your headspace feels, how your heart space feels. And we'll complete our practice with a breath together. So exhale, empty out your lungs. And take a nice easy inhale. And exhale out of your mouth. And thank you for sharing your practice with me today. And drink a lot of water and take care of yourself. Be easy on yourself over the next couple days. Thank you, everyone.